till we're done. There's no foe can defeat us when we're walking side by side. As long as there is love, we will stand. You're my brother, you're my sister, so take me by the hand. Together we will work till we're done. There's no foe that can defeat us when we're walking side by side. As long as there is love, we will stand. Will you sing it with us? You're my brother, you're my brother, you're my sister, so take me by the hand. Together we will work until we're done. There's no foe that can defeat us when we're walking side by side. As long as there is love, we will stand. As long as there is love, we will stand. As long as there is love, we will stand.
Thank you, Rick and David. That was so beautiful. So beautiful. And it's what we want in our hearts and our minds to be true. I wanted to start this morning with a cartoon. It's not one that Marlon drew, but it is one that he shared with me, that he sent to me. I hope you can see it. Yes, you can. You see what it says? No, I'm the better angel. No, I am. And it makes me laugh. Yeah, it makes me laugh every time I see it, which is a welcome thing, laughter these days. We recognize the phrase better angels because as you know, Abraham Lincoln used it in his first inaugural address in 1861. He was trying to prevent a full-on civil war. So he was calling on the better angels of our nature to help us overcome our divisions. We also know that despite Lincoln's powerful plea to the people, war did break out. And brother did kill brother, and sister did betray sister. We may be brothers and sisters, and I'm certain that we are all of us related, but that has never meant that we would get along with each other. At a time like this, especially, when COVID is creeping ever closer, killing colleagues, as Reverend Davis mentioned in his prayer, killing local doctors and nurses, killing loved ones, killing teachers, and even sometimes children. And when we are politically and religiously divided about what safety measures to take to prevent this loss of life in our own state and across this country, you may think that I'm foolish or naive or being too nice or too polite or too open to even be talking about talking with Republicans. Nevertheless, I'm going to. You may think I'm part of the problem, that being so tolerant is what has gotten us into this dangerous place we're in today in the first place. And I hear you. I'm listening. And I want to thank our member, Polly Robinson, for being honest with me about those kinds of thoughts and feelings. Polly also gave me permission to share some of her family story with you. The tension in her family started getting bad around the 2016 election, which is when she came in to talk with me about how to navigate family conversations and what choices she wanted to make about being in relationship with her conservative parents and her daughter spending time with her parents. Over the last 4 years, she told me this past week, things have only gotten worse. And our recent election hasn't helped resolve much or any of the tension, at least not yet, she told me. And then Polly's parents sent her a 14-page letter. And I will not read you much of that letter, but I will read 2 lines. In it, her father wrote, "We hate you and all your snowflake friends. I shot at socialists like you in Vietnam." It is terrifying, shocking, scary, hard to read those words from a father to a daughter. To hear hate like that expressed from a father to a daughter is very hard. And so I am so amazed and impressed and grateful to Polly for first sharing that with me and then giving me permission to share those painful words with all of you, because those words are also reminiscent of the times Lincoln was writing in, right before the Civil War actually broke out. Just watching the video clip of that mother and daughter we saw earlier makes me feel extremely uncomfortable. I don't know about you. And so I was incredibly struck by Polly's story. What's interesting is the impact of those words, the pain of that exchange, and what Polly is experiencing or has been experiencing in her family over the last 4 years make her skeptical, or even unwilling in talking to the other side. While the pain of that exchange and many other stories that I've been hearing is what makes me sure that we have to talk to each other across this political divide. As Joe Biden said last week, we've got to figure out how to work together. Otherwise, we are in big trouble. Now, it's not work that everyone will want to do. We will each have our own part to play in this great civic adventure we are in, ready or not. I knew right after the 2016 election that I wanted to take action to protect the rights of migrants and immigrants. And with the support of the larger Tulsa community, New Sanctuary Network Tulsa was born. The day of the 2020 election, as results came in, or maybe the day later, I texted Marlon and I said, I know what I'm called to do now. I'm called to do the work of braver angels. Now, it turns out I wasn't alone. I've learned that Braver Angels attracted 1,700 new members on the day after this most recent 2020 election. And the number of subscribers doubled in just 1 week. For Lynn, she was my first contact at Braver Angels. The sense of calling came to her after the first election back in 2016. In her own words, I was distraught after the 2016 election. I worked hard for Hillary, and when Trump won, I was dumbfounded. I became angry and found myself going to social media to vent my anger. I learned very early on how counterproductive that was. I looked for a more productive way to vent and to get involved and went to the Democratic Party, where I learned early on that this too was not productive. We wound up talking to each other about the others and not trying to resolve the divide. I then got invited to a red-blue workshop here in Nashville, Tennessee, one of the first ones in early 2017, and I was hooked, Lynn continues. Not only did this make sense for my state of mind, but it offered hope, which is our theme this month of December. It offered me hope for a way that we could ensure that someone as negative as Trump would never be elected again. And it felt like productive work, finally. So here I am almost 4 years later. This is Lynn speaking, and love every aspect of the work and the people who make it happen. We are of good soul and heart. Lynn was the first brave angel I met online, and Tim was the second. I'm going to tell you more about Tim in just a minute. After I tell you just a little bit about the first red-blue workshop, the first red-blue workshop ever that took place in Ohio. The goal was simple. We needed to see if Americans could still disagree respectfully and just maybe find common ground. Some thought it wasn't likely. We proved our skeptics wrong. Republican and Democrat, native-born and immigrant, these Americans liked each other. But first, they had to listen to each other's stories. Black and white, Christian and Muslim. These Americans could appreciate each other's opinions. But first, they needed to listen and hear where those opinions came from. They could listen to each other's points of view once they saw each other, not as stereotypes, but as neighbors in a country they shared. The first gathering was successful. Everyone agreed that that needed to be just the beginning. Tim has been my second point of contact with Braver Angels, and he will be attending the workshop this afternoon at 3 o'clock. He's considering being my red counterpart or partner he lives in Oklahoma City, and so that we might become Oklahoma's first Braver Angels coordinators. I've had one conversation with Tim so far. First, he shared his red credentials with me. And they were very impressive, even a bit intimidating. He has worked with politicians at a very high level. Then he also shared how through his work with families in crisis, trying to navigate the criminal justice system, he's a lawyer as well, how some of his positions about the effectiveness of punishment as a primary tool have shifted. Immediately, I noticed that my prejudgments and my prejudices were challenged. Immediately, I noticed this by his intelligence, by his education, by his lived experience. Yes, I'm confessing my biases here. And soon, my heart softened even more as he spoke about his fear of being rejected by colleagues and friends for talking to a blue. Karen Murphy is the one who says we are living a great civic adventure today. Karen leads global gatherings for Facing History and Ourselves, a nonprofit which partners with over 100,000 teachers and their classrooms around the world. Karen has worked from Rwanda to Colombia, South America, in South Africa, and in Northern Ireland. We know the history of those places. And she tells this story about the work in Northern Ireland. It's on a podcast with Krista Tippett on Being, and I recommend it. After 5 days of facing their history and facing themselves, as a closing activity, Karen asked everyone to go home and create toolboxes with found objects in their homes that represented the necessary tools they thought everyone should have to help a country in transition or a country in trouble. The next day, when everybody gathered together, they shared their objects and their meaning. Brought my toolbox. And they had things like a mirror, which I have in here somewhere, and a candle to see their way. Some people had a candle, others had a flashlight. And some people brought a book because they felt like they needed wisdom and they needed to study history. And others brought a journal because they realized that they needed to reflect on themselves and their own internal biases, and also that together we are writing history. But everyone, every single, oh, here's the mirror, because we have to be able to be brave enough to see ourselves. Everyone, every single person in the workshop brought some kind of tape, some kind of string, or some kind of sewing kit to bring back together that which had been torn apart. And then they continued talking. And with these tools in hand, they talk some more about what to do when there's no trust, what to do when you don't have a shared past, and what to do when you don't see a shared future. We are not the first nation to find ourselves in this situation. And when we make alliances of our differences, we make a difference. I heard a braver angel say that this past week. Toby Jenkins, who many of you know from OKEQ, our equality center here in Tulsa, reached out to us at All Souls right away, immediately, when he heard that we were hosting a Braver Angels workshop this afternoon. And then he explained to me that his daughter decided to segregate her family, which of course is also his family, for the holidays because she didn't think they could make it through one meal without breaking down and turning on each other. So this afternoon at 3 o'clock, we'll learn about 6 roles people often play in their families. There's the gladiator. You might recognize yourself in one or another of these roles. There's the gladiator, there's the sniper, there's the bystander, there's the defender, there's the engager, and there's the peacekeeper. And we'll practice strategies together in breakout rooms. We'll practice how to respond to each of these roles. People, when they play these roles, our mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers. And they sound, they sound to me like really good, useful tools for family life, whether or not you're called to do this work of Braver Angels. And this work may not be for you for many reasons. And for one big reason, which is because of how race is interwoven with politics. I've been skeptical myself that our Black or brown members would have any interest in being involved in this work. Except then I received an email from my third Braver Angel contact this week, from Carlos Hernandez, who is the red chair of the Braver Angels of Color Advisory Council. Here are just a few highlights from his email. He wrote me a beautiful email again, telling me all about his background and his career. And he wrote, "The Church of Braver Angels baptized me at a face-to-face red-blue workshop in Alameda, California on June 1st, 2019. It was safe to be a red and not worry about being stabbed in the back by a blue. Today, Lynn, my first angel, and I are huge admirers of each other, without changing our political color or our stripes. I welcome conducting a formal Braver Angels style one-on-one conversation for red and blue folks in Oklahoma. I can introduce you to Black conservatives," he wrote. And he signed his email, "I am proud to be an American and deplorable of the worst kind. LOL. Cordially, Carlos." Relationships are the glue that hold a democracy together. And you may be aware that many Republicans at All Souls have either died or gone underground or left the church, which is truly tragic, especially after you hear this last story. Roz Elder is a member here and a leader with action. She focuses her time on improving education in Oklahoma, and she met with a group of Republican women recently as they spoke about the primary campaigns in Oklahoma. The election they were discussing would determine who would be running for statewide offices in the general election. And she wrote to me, the conversation was open and free-flowing about the candidates' reputations, past voting records, and specifically about their views concerning public education. And, she continues, the Republican women's group was quick to point to the right-wing extremists and very clear about not supporting them. They even encouraged each other to point out the extremists when campaigning for the candidates who actually supported public education. There were even cautious but critical comments about current national Republican leadership. And she finished, "This meeting helped me realize how often people in Oklahoma find themselves in conflicted positions. And I see now how the media encourages us to stay divided rather than cooperate. But real people who have to deal with real realities understand better than media or many politicians how working together solves real problems." Their tactics, these Republican women's tactics, were successful, and very few extremists were elected. So in that inaugural address, Lincoln also wrote, "Why should there not be a patient confidence in the ultimate justice of the people? Is there any better or equal hope in the world?" I think Lincoln is still talking today directly to you and to me, to all of us. On Friday, when I had a Zoom rehearsal for this afternoon, I had the opportunity to ask the moderators and the hosts after the workshop why they do this work, and I want to share 5 answers. They were quick and eager to answer. One said, "We won't vanquish each other, so we have to start listening to each other." Another said, "We aren't what we hear we are on television." A third said, "It's time to stop shouting and start listening." And a fourth said, "I've lived my whole life with a foot in both worlds. I've had to bring those worlds together inside myself, and it's time we all learned how to do that." And finally, someone said, "This work gives me hope." Remember the cartoon we started with? I've decided that I don't need or want to prove anymore that I'm the better angel. I've realized that I can be true to my values and have integrity and be in conversation with people who don't agree with me or with whom I disagree, all at the same time. I also firmly believe that it's only we, the people, who can accomplish this relational, restorative work, not our political leaders, not so much. And the fact that there are many others across this country who are wanting to do the same work fills me with hope for our children and the children of our children, and fills me with hope for our country. And so I thank you for listening this morning. Thank you for being together, coming together in community, and letting my words and stories settle in your hearts and bodies and souls. I do love you.
Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain.
For purple mountain majesty above the fruited plain.
America, America, let us give our thanks for thee.
And crown thy good with sisterhood from sea to shining sea.
Oh, beautiful for freedom's cause of liberating strife.
For all of those who justice sought and lavish precious life.
America, America, may its purpose be fulfilled.
And selfish gain no longer stain the banner of the free.
Oh, beautiful for human dream that sees beyond the years.
Thy shining cities gleam with peace, undimmed by human tears.
America, America, let us give our thanks for thee.
And crown thy good with brotherhood from